sweet girl. Hello everyone. My name is AJ. I am a resort runner and concierge, usually at Disney's Pop Century Resort. Today I'm actually picking up at the Yacht Club though, so I'm really excited. I came here a little early so I could film some videos, including this Q&A about resort runner and concierge at the Walt Disney World Parks and Resorts. So let's get into it. I asked you guys to send me any questions that y'all have because I know that sometimes when I say resort runner, people are like, are you running marathons? Like, what's going on here? This wind is not helping me. Anyways, so you guys sent me in a bunch of questions that I'm going to answer, and honestly, I'm also going to do another video based on the difference between CPs versus part-time versus full-time, etc. because a lot of you guys had questions about pay rates, benefits, things like that, and it is very different between the three, so I'm going to do a whole nother video on its own for that. So if those are the questions you're looking for, come back later, but still subscribe to my channel, LOL. Yes, we're going to be those people. Alright, so let's get into it. So first off, let me start with my story. I was hired in March of 2020 to be a resort concierge, and at the time they had just melded concierge, which dealt with like reservations, usually DVC people, things like that. They melded that into the front desk, which did more like check-ins, check-outs, room service stuff, things like that. Ooh, don't move. I'm telling you, this wind. If this wind messes up my audio, I'm gonna be so sad. But they had just meshed the two together, so it's all like one complete role now, which was great because they also got a little bit of a raise. Lovely. And at the time, I was hired March of 2020 to be at the Yacht Club, where we are today. And I did 1 week of training, and then I did my resort orientation when there was only 5 people in the whole hotel because COVID was kicking everyone out. And they were like, you'll come back in 2 weeks and we'll do your training all over again, it'll be fine. And then 2 weeks turned into an 8th month furlough. And then it turned into a 6-month termination because January 1st, 2021, they were like, peace out. And then I was finally brought back into the company and they were like, you're never gonna work concierge again. We don't have the need for it, so what role do you want? I picked attractions. I was Kilimanjaro Safari. And then 3 months later, they were like, just kidding, come back to concierge, but you have to be at Pop Century. And at the time, going to Pop Century scared the out of me because it has such a bad rap of being a value resort. You know, there's crazy things happening all the time. Like, it's the largest resort in all of Disney. There's 2,880 rooms, so I was terrified. But honestly, Pop Century is much more my speed, so we'll get into that later. But that is now my home. I pick up at Yacht Club and Beach Club all the time, as well as a lot of the other Disney resorts. So let's just get into it. So one of the first questions I'll answer is, what is a resort runner? So a resort runner was something I was actually trained on, I think like 3 months after I became a concierge. Basically, they handle all of the packages. So anything, if you order like an Amazon package or if you order like cupcakes to the resort, we take care of that. And we make sure it gets filed the correct way, that it's going to the correct guest, that your fee gets posted, that it's going to the room if you've already been to the room, or it's getting like shelved the correct way if you haven't been in the room and you need to come pick it up. We check for IDs, we check for tracking numbers. Like, there's a lot of systems that go into it. It's a fairly quick training though. It's only 2 days of on-the-job training because realistically, it's nothing you can really teach. You just kind of have to do it. So you get 2 days of hopefully getting as much done as you possibly can, and then you're on your own, which for most resorts, that's a little scary because most resorts only have 1 runner, but luckily for Pop Century, we have like 6 runners at any time, so I had a lot of people I could bounce off of if I had questions. We also deal with, like, if you get locked out of your safe, they send us. If you get locked out of your rooms, they send us. So it is a lot of responsibility because a lot of the times I have access to pretty much every single room in the resort as well as pretty much every single safe in the resort, which is a lot of responsibility. It's not something to take lightly. It does get paid the same as concierge, and we still have like the same kind of schedule, 8.5 hours, but you get paid for 8 and then you have a 30-minute unpaid break as well as another 30-minute paid break. But runner's really, really, really fun. You also get to do a lot of things with merchandise. Say, for instance, somebody's droid isn't working and they're not going back to Hollywood Studios. We can take it back for them to get it fixed. Or, for instance, they got the wrong size shirt, or they realized the shirt had a stain all over it and they're absolutely not going back to wherever this shirt is going to be, then we can exchange it for them. Now, if they're going back to those places, you're on your own. Sorry, kid. You have to take your droid with you. We have other things we could be doing. It's just kind of a courtesy thing. You know what I mean? But it's really, really fun. We also get to help out with magical moments, which, if you have to ask for a magical moment, it's not that magical. Just saying. But we do get to help out with that, with like balloons and buying things, and usually for like those extenuating circumstances where we know this family needs a little bit of extra magic. So it's a really fun role. But yeah, so that was what is a resort runner. Another question I remember getting asked is, how often do I pick up at other resorts? So someone's like having a horn battle over there. So I am part-time, so that means I only work 3 days a week at most. lately I haven't been getting scheduled just because of how slow Disney World is right now. And so with that, I usually take those days to pick up other places, especially if I know like my work friends won't be working one day. I'll be like, oh, I'll just go pick up somewhere else then, since my work friends won't be there. And so I usually pick up 5 days a week, and then 1 or 2 of those days will be at another resort. For instance, today I'm at Yacht Club. Saturday I'm actually going to Art of Animation for the first time, so I'm really excited about that. And it's fairly simple. As long as you've had your training, you're good to pick up anywhere else. There are a few nuances with like club level concierge requires a special training, and like obviously resort runner, you can't just pick that up unless you've been trained. Operations, you can't just pick that up unless you've been trained. So there are little nuances here and there, and plus each resort is very different. For instance, at Pop Century you have the opportunity to pull a bank, so like you have money in your counter, but there are some resorts where only their FSAs, which is like our version of a manager or a coordinator, only the FSAs get a bank. So it's very different, and some people have different bank out practices, some people have different just like ways that they handle guest interactions, and there's nothing too crazy where I'm like, oh my gosh, I never want to go to that resort again, it was really awful, or oh my gosh, I never want to go back there again, it was really hard. And everyone is so nice, and they'll always walk you through it, because honestly 99% of the time they're just grateful there's another body there, because the more concierge the better, because sometimes it gets crazy. And with that being said, so like I said earlier, Pop Century was definitely more my speed. Working a resort of that magnitude, there's always a guest in need. One of the questions I remember being asked was how much of our job is like hard work, and I will say there's about like 30 minutes a day, maybe at Pop Century, maybe that I am waiting for a guest to come up and need help. But when I'm at like the DVC resorts, like today at Yacht Club, there's probably going to be more like an hour to 3 hours where I'm just sitting there being like, come hang out with me, come ask me questions, because really it is a job tailored to the guests. So if the guests don't have problems or don't have questions or don't need anything, you're kind of just standing around. But yeah, I forgot I was gonna go with that. Which is also one of my favorite parts about that job. That was another question, was what is my favorite part about the job? And realistically, my favorite part is how much problem solving there is, and especially with like Pop Century, where you have a lot of guests who maybe have never been to Disney before, and even if you haven't been in the last 5 years, that means you haven't really been. Everything has changed so much. So it's really fun to be able to educate these guests and also help them out with their problems, like why do we have 14 Angela Smiths in our system when there's only one in existence right here in front of me? Or, oh, Jacob Smith suddenly fell off the reservation, where did he go? Or, oh, we're missing Little Johnny's tickets, where did they go? And it's a lot of things that the guest in their heart and their mind, like it's a lot, and they're like, oh, I'm freaking out, like we don't have our tickets anymore, or like, oh, I'm freaking out, we're gonna get kicked out, blah blah blah. And to every guest, their problem is very individualized, their problem is very massive. For us, sometimes it's as easy as a click of a button, but you know, we have to empathize with those guests, and so that's really, really awesome to be able to look at a guest, know they're stressing out, know that for us it's usually a pretty easy fix, and being able to fix that for the guests like that, it makes me happy, it makes my heart very warm. But yeah, what else? So kind of touching on, this is kind of going backwards, but when I talked about the premium pay, so for part-timers and full-timers we have a 70-cent premium, on top of the Disney World minimum wage. Right now that minimum wage is $15 an hour for Disney, so I'm getting paid $15.70 an hour. CPs, it's a little different. Their minimum wage right now is like $14, I think, and I don't know if they have the same premium, so I'm gonna find that out though for that DCP versus full-time part-time video that I'm gonna be doing. But yeah, so that's like my pay. We don't get salaried unless you're like a leader or something like that. But let's see, if you had to choose one resort to be a concierge at, which would you choose? Pop Century. I love my team there. I love how busy it is. It's really like that, it fits my personality and it fits my work ethic. I like picking up at the moderate and deluxe resorts. They're just a little slower for me, and as you can tell, I'm like, so for my personality, it's not the best fit full-time. I have some friends who work, like I have a friend who works at Boardwalk and she's obsessed with it. That's great. I would not last at a different resort, you know what I mean? And that's one thing, like Disney makes it fairly easy to transfer around places. So let's say you are stationed at one resort and you pick up somewhere else and you realize, wow, this isn't for me. Disney makes it fairly easy to move around. It's not incredibly easy, but work with your leadership team. CPs, you have no choice, sorry. CPs just kind of get stuck. What else? I kind of like went through a lot of these already. This is really nice. Do you need hotel experience to work at a Disney resort? I should have said this at the beginning. Okay, I'm actually gonna. So when I was going through my process, I actually applied while I was at Yacht Club and Beach Club, LOL. There's a web-based interview, which is fairly easy. It's basically all common sense. What would you do if you saw a child fall down? Help them up, give him a Mickey sticker. Duh. Like, don't kick the child. it's fairly easy. But then I had a phone interview, which again was mostly just to like feel out my personality, you know, and see how well I would mesh with the phone interviewer. Because again, 99% of my role is human interaction. If I can't mesh with someone on the phone, how am I gonna mesh with them in real life? If I can't mesh in an interview, how am I gonna mesh with them in a professional setting? You know what I mean? So there was the phone interview, and then I had like an impromptu in-person interview, because I was actually going to interview for Skyliner. Ended up getting Kilimanjaro waitlisted instead because they just thought my personality would fit Kilimanjaro better, which is so ironic because then I ended up working Kilimanjaro for my displacement anyways. And then I told them I was waiting on concierge, and they were like, oh, do you want to work concierge? I was like, yeah, that is my top choice. And they were like, we'll give you an interview right now, like, just sit here. And so that was really awesome. Casting was amazing with that. And that in-person interview, again, I mesh really well with those hourly recruiters. They're all super bubbly, super friendly. And then I had an interview with the proprietor of Dackle, Animal Kingdom Lodge. And I was super excited that it was Dackle because my family is DVC, we own at Dackle. And I was trying to connect with him on that. I was like, yeah, like we got our name on the tapestry. I love Dackle. And he was just, which does not mesh with me at all. So then I had to like take a step back and reevaluate my approach, and it honestly made me sweat so much. I like left that interview crying. I thought I failed it. The one interview question that I remember fumbling really bad was, if I have a family of 4 coming for 4 days, what kind of ticket should you recommend? And I blanked on what a 4-day park hopper was. Blank, nowhere in this brain, it was gone. I blinked so hard. And so I ended up working through it though, which I think really saved me. I was like, well, I would want to talk to the guests about their needs, you know, are we going to any of the other competing theme parks? Are we on a budget? Are we planning on doing more than 1 park per day? Blah, blah, blah. I just couldn't pull the words park hopper out of my head. But I think I saved myself by being able to go through it. Another thing that I think really helped me was that I go to the parks all the time as a guest, and so I have a lot of knowledge based from a guest point of view. So parks and resorts, you know, I did the DCP, we grew up going to Disney all the time, so I think that helped me. But personally, I had no actual like front desk or concierge experience. So, and I know that's not the case for everyone. This position is very heavily weeded out by a computer. For instance, one of my roommates, she was concierge for her DCP, and then she applied to be part-time like a few years later, or maybe it was full-time, either way. She applied for concierge a few years later and automatically got NLIC'd, no longer in considerations, even though she had already done that same position for the same company. It was just very odd. The computer is very picky, so honestly, the worst they can do is say no, apply, 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 apply. If you keep getting rejected, maybe reach out to someone to look over your resume, you know, put those buzzwords from the application in your resume, have a nice cover letter, really show your personality and why you'd be a great fit for the job. But, oh, buggy. Because that's the one thing I know a lot of people automatically get NLIC'd. It's a hard role to get into, I'm not gonna lie. Because it's also a Disney careers role versus a Disney job. So Disney jobs are more frontline. They're going to be like quick service food and beverage, attractions, things like that. Versus concierge is considered a career role because the interview process and the knowledge base is a little more strenuous. For instance, the training is 1 week at DU, learning concierge course. That's learning all of the computer applications that we have to deal with. And then there's your resort orientation, which is basically the basic orientation anyone would get for any role at their resort. And then there's another week where you do more simulated interactions, kind of like on-the-job training, but they do it at Disney University. This could change because I know with COVID, like all of my training when I got brought back after COVID was in person at the resort. But this was just what it was supposed to be pre-COVID, so that's what I'm talking about. So I did 1 week of that, or was supposed to do 1 week of that. And then because I was at a DVC resort, I was supposed to get extra training on DVC. And so that is kind of a little downside. Now that I'm at a value resort, I don't have that DVC specific training. So sometimes when things happen here, I'm like, I gotta go ask about that. Although growing up DVC, I have like a pretty solid understanding, but you know, there's a lot of nuances. Anyways, but again, that training is changing literally month to month. They just got back to DU. For instance, when I got brought back in, what was that, August of 2021? July, something like that. I did 2 weeks basically of on-the-job training. My trainer was like, do you learn hands-on? And I was like, yes. He's like, great, there's your first guest. And we just did it all together for like 2 weeks. It was amazing. That's honestly how I prefer to learn anyways, but yeah, so we'll see how that ends up playing out with COVID restrictions kind of being a little more laid back, DU's opening up again, things like that. DU's Disney University, by the way, sorry. Favorite cast member costume. The prettiest one is the Yacht and Beach Club one, but it's also the most uncomfortable because it really just digs into my waistline. She is no longer a D1 athlete, friends. But it's really, really pretty. It's not very comfortable though, but the most comfortable one, the one that I feel the most confident in, is the Pop Century Runner one. It's a long sleeve, long pants combination, and it's bright yellow and bright blue, so it's not the most flattering look, but like, I think I make it work. Oh my goodness gracious. What it's like to interact with all sorts of guests every single day. So again, that's another thing I really love about this job. We have guests from literally all over the world. All over the world, different cultures, different languages, different expectations. Like, it's insanity. Different, how do I want to word this? And sometimes, you know, there is a difference in money, and that can make a very big difference in a Disney vacation. It's no secret that Disney is getting more expensive by the hour, it feels like. So sometimes when you're helping a guest plan a vacation and their budget is less than maybe, let's say, others, it becomes a little more of a game of how can we make this the best for you without breaking your budget. And then you have some guests who literally stay at DVC resorts for 3 months out of the year. Tell me what you do for a living so I can change my life path to that. Thank you. Oh my goodness, but yeah, it's really fun. Luckily at Concierge we do have a phone bank that we can call for any sort of interpreter that we may need, and that's really helpful because I want to make sure that I'm saying everything I need to say correctly and that the guest is telling me and I'm understanding everything they need to say correctly. That way the language barrier isn't going to be a barrier in their vacation. Like, I don't want something as silly as what language we speak to get in the way of you having a magical time. Like, fix it. Like, we got this. We have an interpreter. Use your resources, people. And that's another thing, we do have a lot of resources. This is kind of off topic. Another favorite part of this job is how many resources we have. I have phone numbers for pretty much every single resort, pretty much every single like shop, ride, what have it. Some managers around property, I have their phone number because if I need to solve something for a guest that I physically cannot do at my own computer with my own brain and my own applications, I have people I can pull from. Our back office team is really amazing. They're the ones that handle like the room reservations and the room assignments that maybe the Disney Reservation Center isn't necessary for, but sometimes it is necessary to call the Disney Reservation Center. Sometimes it is necessary to call the Avengers, which is like our IT team, you know? Which, isn't that such a fun name? I'm like, I have to call the Avengers. I'm just like literally calling IT because your magic band won't work. It's so fun. What else? Do you have a home location or are you scheduled everywhere? So like I said, I am statused at Pop Century, but I'm allowed to pick up other places, and sometimes if they really need to, they'll deploy you somewhere. So for instance, a lot of CPs a few months ago got deployed to Polynesian, and a lot of people still are. I don't know what's going over at the Polynesian. But you can get deployed, and I mean, once you get deployed, you get like 2 hours of a deployment training where they kind of take you around the resort and let you know what you need to know. For instance, I picked up at Fort Wilderness once, and I wasn't supposed to get deployment training, but honestly, Fort Wilderness is such a beast of a resort that they were like, please get in the golf cart, let us take you around, or else you're gonna have no idea what you're talking about. I picked up there probably 5 or 6 times, and I'm still like a little lost on everything, just because again, Fort Wilderness is such a beast of a resort. But again, it's one of the fun things about this job. Every resort is so different. Like, I'm not gonna be doing golf cart reservations at Pop Century, but you are at Fort Wilderness. It's amazing. What is the most challenging or funniest guest situation you've had to handle? Ooh. Most challenging, I think, are the guests who expect magic 100% of the time, because it's Disney, which is great. We do set a very high expectation for ourselves as a company, but I cannot pull a reservation for Space 220 out of thin air. It is what it is. No matter how much you beg and plead, I cannot get you a room in a resort that's completely full. No matter how much you say please and thank you, I cannot drop the price of a suite at the Contemporary. Like, it's just, I wish I could do every single guest request that I get, but it's just simply not feasible, not plausible, not possible, like, you know what I mean? And so that's one thing that's really challenging to convey with the guests, because I'm like, yes, it is Disney, you're gonna have an amazing time, but no, you are not going to Space 220 tomorrow afternoon for the lunch hour rush. Like, we see everything that you see on your My Disney Experience app. We don't have any hidden buttons to like make reservations appear. That's only for like incredibly extenuating circumstances, and I've only ever had that happen once. And like, if you're nice to cast members, they'll go above and beyond for you as much as they can, but there is a limit to that magic sometimes. And I feel like that's something I wish guests knew more. In terms of funniest things, a sweet one was I've gotten to help with the proposal of this really, really cute couple. We like banished the girlfriend. I was like, okay, restrooms over there, go to the restroom. And we set up their proposal over at the Contemporary, and they came back afterwards and were like showing me the ring, and they were like freaking out. It was really cute. But yeah, what else? Do you ever have burnout? Yes. One of the busiest times and seasons. Busiest times are gonna be like your Christmas and New Year's time, your any holiday like Thanksgiving, spring break's coming up. The slowest times are usually January and September, but right now even it's really busy, so I don't know what's up with that. What do you think about service dogs in Disney? Service dogs are allowed anywhere at any resort, as long as they're like a certified service dog, not an ESA dog or anything like that, because those don't technically count with the ADA laws. But there are some resorts like the Yacht Club that do allow dogs. You just pay like an extra fee and you let them know, and there's only certain resorts that allow non-service dogs. Have you ever met anyone famous while performing your job? I can't say who, but yes, I've met a few famous people. And I'm Pop Century too, which is like wild to me. Okay. I feel like that was a good little intro. If you guys have any more questions, comments, concerns, please either DM me at magicallyaj on Instagram or leave them in the comments here. Also, if I said anything that you think you know a little more about, please politely educate me. I would love to learn more. Obviously, I'm just one cast member. I have one story. Things could be completely different, and if you educate me, I will not be mad about it. Just be nice about it. Alright, I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye!